Welcome to Good Chat, the podcast from BC Adventure Smart, where we share stories, insights, and tips to help you enjoy the outdoors safely. We talk all things outdoor recreation and adventure while keeping safety at the heart of every conversation. Our goal is simple: to lessen the impact on search and rescue and help grow a stronger safety culture in BC. Whether you're hiking, skiing, paddling, or just curious about BC's backcountry, this is the place for real stories and practical advice to keep you prepared and confident outdoors. Let's dive in.
Welcome to BC Adventure Smart's Good Chat podcast, where stories and safety meet up. Today we're diving into a topic that powers every adventure: nutrition for nature. Whether you're hiking, paddling, skiing, snowboarding, mountain biking, exploring, whatever you choose to do out there, what you eat can make or break your outdoor experience. We'll explore how to fuel your body before, during, and after activity, the role hydration plays in performance and safety, and how small changes in your food choices can really make a big difference in your time outside. BC Adventure Smart helps outdoor enthusiasts stay safe and informed, reducing the strain on search and rescue while building a strong safety culture in the province of British Columbia. Hi, I'm Sandra Riches, the Executive Director for BC Adventure Smart, a program created by the BC Search and Rescue Association back in 2004. Today's episode: Fueling the Adventure, Nutrition for the Great Outdoors. We're excited to welcome Christina Sutter, Master of Health Science and a registered dietitian, to share practical strategies, tips, science-backed insights, and how to eat smart and stay strong outside. Let's dive in. Hi, Christina. How are you today?
Hi, Sandra. I'm great. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, I'm happy to have you on because I know I knew a lot of outdoor activity myself, and the people that we work with in our work here at BC Adventure Smart and with Search and Rescue, we're a pretty active group, and we talk about how we keep safe and healthy a lot. And I thought, hey, let's talk about food and what it does for us, what it doesn't do for us, and that's why I was excited to touch base with you and have you on board here. So we're really excited to talk about what we can do to make things better for everyone outside. Can you share a bit about your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working as a sport dietitian for the last 20 years here in BC. And I think all BCers, all sort of everyone on the sea to sky and into the interior are just really outdoors people. So while I started in sort of professional athletes, Olympic athletes, team athletes, that sort of thing, my practice has really morphed over into ultra endurance, Ironman, backcountry skiing, bike packing, rock climbing, mountaineering, all these sort of outdoor adventure sports. And it brings on a whole new set of challenges that maybe professional athletes don't have to think about. So I'm keen to talk about it because there's a lot of things that people miss that they don't think about. And then there's just the logistics of carrying enough food and fuel with you for whatever you're doing.
What inspired you to specialize in this specific area?
I think a few personal fails is a good inspiration. So, when I can think of my own adventures and when I've sort of messed up on the hydration or the fuel, or I got lost and I was out longer than I expected, or I didn't have a recovery snack with me. I've made every mistake there is and I've learned from them, and now I'm just here to help other people do better.
And I think we all make mistakes. Thanks for being honest there. And I know I have, I'll share, friends have, boyfriend has, and there's mistakes pre, during, and post outdoor adventure, right? And that nutrition, the basics is really important. So what are some key differences between day-to-day nutrition and fueling for outdoor activities like skiing or mountain biking?
Oh, it's huge. Like day-to-day nutrition, we're looking at calories, micronutrients, macronutrients. Timing isn't quite as important, but that's where you get your general health from. So we look for, are you getting enough fiber and protein, and is there a lot of variety in the foods that you're getting? In terms of fueling for an outdoor activity, none of those things matter. And in fact, good nutrition or healthy food doesn't even matter anymore. There's pretty much three things that matter for fueling outdoor activity. The first one is fluid, so staying hydrated. Second one is carbs, so getting enough carbs to fuel your activity. If you're exercising in the heat, for many hours. Electrolytes can become critical to keep your hydration as well. And then recovery nutrition is a big piece for outdoor activities, especially if you're doing multi-day events.
You hit a few nails on the head there. You talked about energy and hydration and recovery. And I think the recovery is a big one that a lot of us forget about, or maybe dismiss. Maybe not forget, but dismiss and think, okay, I've done the activity. I have nothing else to do, right? And that can play a role in keeping comfortable and healthy. What's the biggest mistake people make when planning food for outdoor adventures?
I see a lot of rock climbers who would drive up from the city to Squamish, climb for the day, and then make the drive home and not eat their dinner meal or not eat at the end of the day until they got
Yeah.
home. And that drive really delays that recovery. And particularly when they're really focused on climbing all day, they might not be thinking about even eating enough. So that might be a day where you're a little bit under fueled, and then the recovery is delayed, and maybe they don't want to carry the weight, or they're not used to thinking about hydration because it's not, let's say, as vigorous a sport as, backcountry skiing might be. But it would be that piece of not really planning your fuel and the timing of your fuel for your event. That's just one example. If I look at backcountry skiers or mountain bikers, they don't like to carry weight with them. Some of the bigger guys really go through a lot of fuel and need a lot of fluid. So it's pretty easy for them to get depleted. And you know that this applies to you if you're the guy who's eating a whole large pizza when you get back. You know that you underfueled that day, right?
Right. Yeah, and it tastes so good. Oh my goodness. Tastes so good. You talked about timing there a little bit. Let's say someone's climbing, because that's what you were talking about, and they drive back to the city and they missed a window. So how possibly missed a window? How quickly should you be having a meal, getting energy in you, fueling up after, let's say, a day climb? Like, what's that window? Is it 10 minutes, an hour? What's the best time to eat?
It really depends on the sport and the person in terms of the consequences. So if it's a high vigorous sport, like say if we're talking about cross country skiing or backcountry skiing, they're really using they're burning a lot of calories.
Yeah.
If we're talking about cycling, same thing. If we're talking about rock climbing, it's maybe less vigorous, but rock climbers need a really high strength to weight ratio, which means they like to be muscular and light, right?
Right.
And so in order to maximize your muscle without losing muscle mass and getting too skinny, you really need to pay attention to that recovery window. If you delay your recovery for too long, you're going to lose your muscle mass. The ideal window traditionally is sort of as soon as possible. If you can get it in 15 minutes, that's better than half an hour. The new research is showing, okay, well, maybe the window might be an hour or 2 hours, but sooner is better is what we know. And particularly if somebody's very sensitive to their muscle to weight ratio, or if it's a bigger, heavier guy who burns through fuel, or if you're in a vigorous sport where you're burning through a lot of fuel, then that window gets tighter. You want to fill it up sooner, or you become depleted, and that's when you start burning off muscle.
You talked about a few different activities, and we've brought up a couple ourselves. How do nutrition needs change in colder weather and or on longer treks? Like, let's say if I'm mountain biking in the fall versus backcountry skiing in the winter. So how does nutrition needs change with the weather and those cold temperatures?
Weather will change your hydration needs more than it will change your nutrition needs.
Ah,
But typically it can change your thirst or your hunger as well. So you might have a different thirst cue in the cold weather. Like it'll be less. You won't feel as thirsty. And I almost want to correct my previous statement that said, a common mistake that people make. I would add another really common mistake that people make is that they wait a little bit too long before they start drinking, and they wait until they're thirsty before they start drinking, and they use thirst as a cue to drink. And we all know that thirst is quite a delayed symptom or sign of dehydration, and if you wait till you're thirsty, you're probably already dehydrated, and it's quite difficult to catch up from a dehydrated state. The other issue in the cold weather is carrying water with you that doesn't freeze, right?
Right.
And you might not have streams available to filter water. And so now it becomes can you carry an insulated Camelback that even the straw has to be insulated so that doesn't freeze,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Real world challenges depending on when we recreate in the season. And a lot of us think about things, but maybe not right down to that finite detail to help us really make it work for us, right? You talked about a few different things there. What challenges do you think people face in keeping nutrition simple and effective for outdoor recreation?
Yeah, that's the challenge is you want to keep it simple. You don't want to overcomplicate a sport where there's already so much gear and things to think about, but you have the objective of getting enough calories and staying hydrated to basically make sure that you're feeling good for that day and you're able to finish it without, you know, dropping into what I call noodle legs and
Oh yeah. We've all felt
just
that.
so challenges are weight, of course, carrying things with you. For the cyclists, they'll talk about something you can eat with one hand, not two. Same with the cross-country skiers. They don't like to stop, and it's real hard to eat while you're moving with your poles in hand, sort of thing. And then foods that say don't freeze in the winter or don't spoil in the summer, you have to think about all of those challenges as well.
And there's a few there. And I know when I think of search and rescue subjects that are rescued, they're not often, let's say, a high-end athlete. Some maybe are, not all. And they're regular folk that head out during the week on weekends and run into situations where they need search and rescue. And that's a whole other conversation. But some of it could probably stem around fuel and food. I know a friend, we went hiking a few years ago and she didn't have a proper breakfast and bonked on the way up to a sunrise hike. Boyfriend's run into the same problem, not enough energy and fuel while we're out there, and has had a few experiences in bonking. I think about what we carry, and you mentioned it too, and how can outdoor enthusiasts balance pack weight with what we're carrying, with getting enough fuel? Like we have to think about what we're carrying and how much we should carry. How does that work for us?
Yeah, I'd like to address that because, bonking before you even start the activity, that's a tough one. So you do want to think about the meal that you have before you go. And especially if there's a drive from the time you leave the house to the time you get to your destination where the sport starts, that drive might be a couple hours and you could have eaten breakfast a couple hours ago, but it might not have been enough because you had to wake up at the crack of dawn and you couldn't
good
eat
point.
a whole
Good
lot
point.
at the crack of dawn. 2 hours later, now you're ready for breakfast, but you didn't think about that. So we want to think about eating enough before the activity starts. And if you are waking up at the crack of dawn, yes, you do still need to eat at that time. If you don't have a big appetite early, keep it simple carbs, oatmeal, banana, peanut butter, toast, that sort of thing. But then also pack for right before your event starts, half an hour before you go up. You could have another little something depending on what the sport is. Maybe it's a Cliff Bar, or maybe it's a muffin, or maybe it's your breakfast burrito because your first breakfast was on the light side. So you want to think about what you're having before, and then you also want to think about what you're taking during. So if you're a large male, when I say, a guy who's maybe 185 pounds or heavier, he's going to need more fuel than a 135-pound female. But on average, we want to plan for at least 1.2 grams of carbs per kilo that somebody weighs per hour of the activity. If you're going over several meal times, we need to add extra calories for the meal times that we're sporting through. So it might mean that a guy backcountry skiing could be needing 6,000 calories, and a female mountain biking for 4 hours might need 1,500 calories or 1,000 calories. So it varies a lot in terms of what you're doing and how long you're doing it for, and if you're doing it over a meal time. In terms of how to leverage the weight, well, now we have to make sure to take things that are worth a lot of calories and don't weigh a lot. So that's peanut butter, trail mix, bars, dried fruit, granola, wraps. I have a lot of athletes who do a peanut butter honey roll up in a wrap. That's light. It's got a lot of calories. If you're overnighting and you're stopping, like, you might take ramen noodles. Those are light, but they have a lot of calories in them. Or you might do overnight oats, something that's dehydrated that you can kind of add fluid to afterwards. And then, of course, there's the dehydrated high calorie meals and meal replacements as well.
If you're in trouble in the outdoors, don't wait. Call for help right away. Dial 911 as soon as you need help. The faster you call, the faster search and rescue teams can respond and keep everyone safe. If in doubt, call it out. Learn more on the BC SAR Association website, bcsara.com.
You're listening to BC Adventure Smart's Good Chat podcast. I'm Sandra Riches, Executive Director for BC Adventure Smart. Today's guest, Christina Sutter, as a registered dietitian. There's successes and stories out there. I shared a few of some friends who were maybe failures in a loving way, I'm saying. But there's times when we've done it right and there's times when we've done it wrong. Do you have any examples of when good nutrition really helped someone on an outdoor adventure trip?
Yeah, I do. I have some clients who like to do a combination of mountaineering, rock climbing, and camping and hiking over like multi-day trips where they're carrying all their food and fluid. And with that challenge, okay, it's in the summertime, so they can bring a water filter thing and they don't have to carry the water, but they do have to carry all their food. One of the challenges that one of my clients faced was not wanting to take the time to make a fire in the morning in order to cook a breakfast because they're wanting to take down camp and get out hiking early in the morning without having to spend a whole lot of extra time preparing food. And so dehydrated meals didn't really work for breakfast for this fellow. And he was often just relying on trail mix, and that wasn't quite enough. Like we try and reserve that for the on the hike fuel. We came up with an overnight oats recipe where he combined the oats and all these seeds and nuts and dehydrated peanut butter powder all in a Ziploc. And then the night before, he would just add some milk powder and water to it, put it in a jar, and overnight that would just turn into a beautiful overnight oats that him and his whole crew ended up doing because it was sort of their savior in terms of allowing them a fast start in the morning, but still delivering 600 or 700 calories in a small container.
That's 100% success and sounds delicious, by the way. Actually, I think I'd eat that at home even. What we've found over the years with reminding or introducing people to safety tips and preparedness, if it's somewhat easy to do, they're going to do it, right? More than if it's more difficult, takes more time. But nonetheless, that sounds like it worked. Obviously, the crew all adopted it and it was tasty and got them off and going and allowed them to kind of clean up camp as quickly as they wanted to as well, which is great to see. Those are practical tips and some easily accessible things for people to do. What would you say, Christina, are your top 3 nutrition tips for outdoor enthusiasts? Summer, spring, winter, or fall, no matter what those enthusiasts are.
I always plan, take more food than you think you need, take more water than you think you'll need. It's okay if you don't use it all, but you'll sure be glad you had it if you need it. If your trip is a little longer, if you hit traffic, if you took a detour and you end up needing it, that can be the difference between it being a really great day and a miserable day. So take more than you think you need take enough to have a recovery snack immediately after. Think about the timing of that so that you're not sort of really end loading your day and delaying your recovery. And drink early and drink often. Don't wait an hour in to start drinking your water. Drink every 15 minutes from the time you start your sport.
It crossed my mind, and it's part of the beginning of our chat today. Can you describe what bonking is? And then I'll move on to the next bit, but maybe not everyone understands. What is bonking?
Oh, I think people have felt it if they haven't heard the term before. It's when your blood sugar drops and you can no longer focus. Your legs turn to noodles. They lose their speed and their power. It's hard to focus on anything, and mostly you're just thinking about food. You're hungry. Your performance will drop, and at that point you're breaking down muscle for fuel because you've lost your steady stream, your fuel source that the muscles will use during exercise is carbs. And when you run out of that, that's when performance really tanks and you just feel miserable. You're just like, I want this to be over. That's the feeling, right?
It's a horrible feeling. I felt it on a mountain bike trip a few years ago with some girls, and I'm a pretty good fueler, but obviously that day, not so much, obviously. And yeah, I felt nauseous actually, and weak and dizzy, and it didn't go away. It stuck with me, even though I stopped and did have a snack. What's a simple snack or meal you would always recommend for outdoor enthusiasts?
I would say you want to focus on carbs. So I'd have to pick something oriented around a wrap, a bagel, a sandwich, a bar, but not one of these silly protein bars that are low in sugar. Like I would get the Cliff Builder bar or the Cliff Filled bar, one of the high sugar ones. That's what you need when you're burning calories. So go for carbs. And yeah, some people do gels and Sharkies and gummies and that sort of thing. And that's more appropriate for shorter, high intensity events like a Grand Fondo or an Ironman or something when you can't eat real food. But if we're talking about you're out for the whole day, you really should have more food-oriented things.
If you're heading outdoors, be bright, be seen, be found. Wearing bright colors makes it easier for friends and search and rescue teams to spot you quickly if something goes wrong. Robin Blue is a color that's easily spotted by search and rescue members, especially in the fall when reds, yellows, and oranges can blend into the landscape. Stand out to stay safe.
Does fueling our bodies differ for women compared to men? And let's say in relation to women's cycles or those of us who experience postmenopause or menopause or perimenopause, does it differ from men to women?
Oh gosh, you need another half hour for us to talk about that.
That's a whole other podcast then. I'm okay with that. We'll have you back.
Yeah, I mean, we want to think about the caloric needs of the person, but then also the macros that we require are different. And then that changes through menopause as well. In terms of through a woman's cycle, like in the luteal phase, she'll be less keen to do cardio and maybe require a little bit more carbs. And so that would be an optimal time to do more strength-based activities. Another angle that I would consider too is that when we're talking about high expenditure sports, so if we're talking about cycling, cross-country skiing, backcountry skiing, those I would say are your high expenditure sports. Men can use as much as I mentioned before, 6,000 calories a day.
Wow.
But even a small woman could require 3,000, 3,500 calories a day. If we're talking about teenagers who are still growing, then they have like an added need on top of the adults as well, just to support growth and development. Now, if we're regularly engaging in this kind of sport and we're not replacing those high fuel demands, it can put these people into like a low energy availability state, which puts them at higher risk for developing something called REDS, relative energy deficiency in sport, which again is a whole other topic, but it just really speaks to why optimizing the fuel on a daily basis can not just help your performance, but it can keep you healthy too.
And those are key points. We're talking about our focus here at BC Adventure Smart is to reduce the impacts on search and rescue. That's our main goal. And if we can do that by helping people fuel better, be more cognizant of their pre, during, and post adventures in relation to nutrition, that's all part of preparedness. And that's a big part of our focus. And having you on, Christina, has really opened some eyes, I think, and mine included. So we've talked about quite a bit today, and I think we might have to have you back because I think we hit a few topics that might need more time. But if you could think of one key piece of nutrition advice for those outdoor enthusiasts, what would it be?
Always pack more water and food than you think you'll need.
We often don't take enough, do we?
Yeah. You assume, I'll eat when I get back. And sure, you have that option, but I strongly recommend front loading your nutrition in order to have a great day, to enjoy your day, to feel your best, to work your best. You want to front load your nutrition. You want to eat often, eat early, and not have to ration out your one bar that you brought for a 4-hour adventure. Yeah. So be prepared. Take more than you think you need. It's fine if you don't need it, but maybe, who knows, maybe your extra will help your buddy who didn't bring anything at all.
Yeah. And I think we've all been there when we've needed the help and we've been able to provide it. And Christina, that's what you've done today. You've given us so much advice and really provided some great insights for everyone out there. That's it for today's episode of Good Chat. Thanks so much, Christina, for sharing your practical advice and expert insights on nutrition for outdoor adventures. We really appreciate your time today.
Okay, you're very welcome. Thanks, Sandra.
Thanks for listening to Good Chat with BC Adventure Smart, where stories and safety come together. Remember, enjoying BC's incredible outdoors starts with being prepared. By making informed decisions and learning from experts and adventurers alike, we can lessen the need for search and rescue and build a stronger safety culture across the province. If you enjoyed this episode, please check the show notes for resources and tips. And as always, adventure smart and be prepared. And we'll see you next time on Good Chat with BC Adventure Smart.